Who could have ever thought that the President of the United States would incite an insurrection against the Congress, the Constitution, and the Capitol of the United States?
I was saying it for years.
Former Democratic Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi was recently interviewed by Bill Maher, and during the conversation, they discussed the January 6th insurrection. And then Pelosi took the time to brutally shut down a bad faith MAGA talking point, which was resurrected by recently released previously unseen footage of Pelosi. And MAGA Republicans are now trying to blame the insurrection on her instead of Donald Trump. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video, but before we get to Maher, I need to show you the footage in question that Maher and Pelosi will be discussing. This was obtained by CNN. It was recently released, previously unseen, and it's footage filmed by Christine Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, whom I actually met at the Democratic National Convention. CNN got their hands on it, and we hear Pelosi discuss the January 6th insurrection as she is being led away by security.
To the steps of the Capitol, to the very top, and it looks like we're trying to breach the Capitol building. There's a time when strong action is needed. I'm sorry, Pence is a traitor, but we still...
What, of course, you are seeing is footage obtained by CNN, airing for the first time here on CNN this morning of January 6th, and the evacuation of lawmakers, including then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It was filmed by her daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, as part of an HBO documentary. It was turned over to Congress, and it shows how Pelosi reacted when she was told she'd have to evacuate the Capitol and go to Fort McNair.
I do not appreciate this. I don't support this. I live in the Capitol.
And the footage shows her questioning how the Capitol could possibly have been unprepared for what happened that day.
How many times did the members ask, are we prepared? Are we prepared? We're not. Prepared for the worst. We're calling the National Guard. Now, should have been here to start out. I just don't understand this. I just don't understand this. Why do we empower people this way by not being ready? I feel responsible. We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
No, there's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more, because it's stupid that we should be in a situation like this, because they thought they had what? They thought these people would act civilized? They thought these people gave a damn? Shame on us.
So, there you go. That was at least some of the footage that was released, and it's the predicate for the clip I'm about to show you with Bill Maher. So she says, as she's being whisked away by security, she's not quite sure what's going on. She's wondering why the Capitol wasn't better secured or why the National Guard wasn't already on site. And as a leader, in the moment, she says, I take full responsibility, which makes sense if you're an actual leader and you're thinking to myself, oh my God, I could have done more somehow to prevent it. She doesn't go into any detail about what she could have done more or different. She just reflexively says, I take responsibility. You can already see what MAGA is doing with that quote. But before we get into that, I want to play her exchange with Bill Maher. She appeared, the former speaker, on the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, and this clip was discussed.
So there's some interesting stuff in the book about January 6th.
Yeah.
Trump is going to have an award ceremony for the rioters coming out. And there's some footage of you that just came out where you're talking about, you say, I'm quoting you, I take responsibility. Now, I think you're talking about the fact that there should have been more protection there.
No, what I'm talking about is that we didn't demand that the president, well, first of all, who could have ever thought that the president of the United States would incite an insurrection against the Congress, the Constitution, and the Capitol
I was
of the
saying
United
it for
States?
years. I was saying it for years. I was absolutely.
I'm not ever taking responsibility for Donald Trump.
Right.
But only responsibility I will take for Donald Trump is to make sure he is not re-elected.
Look at that.
What I was saying is that we had to get the National Guard there, but he resisted. He wouldn't do it. And what did he do? But I hate to use this word, but lie about it. Lie about it.
Oh, you can use that word. Yeah, that.
I hate to use the word lie, and I hate to use the word hate. So that was a sentence that I didn't like.
So the reason this is important is because, again, as you can imagine, bad faith MAGA Republicans all across Twitter and social media, sitting Republican politicians, conservative pundits are saying, see, Nancy Pelosi is admitting that the National Guard not being there on January 6th is her fault. Donald Trump is perfect and flawless and blameless. He is absolved. When, of course, it couldn't be further from the truth. So accompanying the footage is the CNN article. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. Yeah. GOP Representative Barry Loudermilk of Georgia is leading the GOP effort to investigate the 2021 Capitol attack, including looking into the Democratic-led Select Committee's actions from the last Congress and the security failures from the day. Loudermilk's panel has alleged that the former January 6th committee withheld witness transcripts from the public that undercut some of their most explosive claims about the insurrection. The fight over January 6th is still playing out in the courts, too. On Tuesday, special counsel Jack Smith filed a revised indictment against the former president in an attempt to revive the January 6th case that was stalled following the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Asked by CNN about how the new footage turned over to Congress, Alexandra Pelosi said, quote, "Hope you appreciate the cinematography backwards and in heels. Now, if you want context, go watch Pelosi in the House, streaming now on HBO." So, as she made her way from the House floor, we're skipping ahead here about Pelosi, as she made her way from the House floor to her SUV escorted by her security detail and senior staff, the speaker lamented that by delaying the official election certification proceedings, the rioters appeared to have succeeded in their mission. If they stop the proceedings, they will have succeeded in stopping the validation of the president of the United States. She then raised questions about why security officials did not anticipate the level of violence that unfolded on January 6th and questioned why the National Guard had not been brought earlier. It's the clip from the footage. How many times the members ask, are we prepared? Are we prepared? We're not prepared for the worst, Pelosi said. We're calling the National Guard now. It should have been here to start out. I just don't understand it. Why do we empower people this way by not being ready? On top of repeatedly asking if the National Guard was coming, Pelosi turned to her chief of staff, Terry McCullough, and said, "I feel responsible," adding, "We have a responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on, and we should have. This is ridiculous." Pelosi said the National Guard, quote, "clearly didn't know what was going to transpire on January 6th, and continued, quote, "I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more because it's stupid. Shame on us." Now, again, there is nothing that she could have done with respect to the National Guard. So, while this is the key part I want to play. While Trump and his allies in Congress have repeatedly pointed the finger at Pelosi, the Speaker of the House is not in charge of Capitol security. I repeat, not in charge of Capitol security. That's the responsibility of the Capitol Police Board, which oversees the U.S. Capitol Police and approves requests for National Guard assistance. Moreover, the National Guard themselves answer directly to the President of the United States. If you don't believe me, go to the DC National Guard's website, okay, dc.ng.mil. If you go to the About Us section, it says an official website of the United States government about us, about the District of Columbia National Guard. The DC National Guard is the only National Guard unit out of all the 54 states and territories which reports only to the President of the United States. As such, the commanding general of the DC National Guard is subordinate solely to the President of the United States. The authority to activate the DC National Guard has been delegated by the President to the Secretary of Defense and further delegated to the Secretary of the Army. So the people who can activate the National Guard are the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of Defense, or the President of the United States. from whom all of the flowing authority falls. So the only way that the Secretary of Defense can on his own activate the National Guard is because he is using the president's authority. Same thing with the Secretary of the Army. All three of them, any of the three of them, could have activated the National Guard. And Donald Trump watched the January 6th insurrection unfold for 3 hours. He watched it on TV in the White House for 3 hours. He watched his supporters break into the Capitol, seek out to murder his vice president and congressional leaders. And his own family members and staff begged him to intercede. He had two roles as the cult leader of the mob, the riotous insurrectionist mob attacking the Capitol. So he had authority over them, moral authority. He could have pulled out his phone, dropped a video on Twitter. He could have tweeted, "Everybody go home, cease and desist. This is not what I wanted. I categorically oppose this. Get out now." He didn't. He also, in his separate lane of authority as the commander-in-chief of the DC National Guard, the chief executive of the United States, the person responsible for maintaining law enforcement and national security, he could have also picked up the phone and said, "Deploy the National Guard and stop this now." He had two lanes of authority that he could have exercised to stop this insurrection. And instead, what you hear are MAGA Republicans take Nancy Pelosi's reflexive, "Oh my God, as a leader in Congress, I could have and should have done more. Surely there was something I could have done to compel Donald Trump, to make sure Donald Trump was ready, to push Donald Trump. Surely there was something I could have done." They take that and they're trying to use it in bad faith to suggest that Donald Trump was perfect and flawless and he didn't have to do anything. And it was in fact all on Nancy Pelosi. But it's not true. She had no authority over the Capitol Police. She had no authority over the National Guard. What she was talking about was not doing more to expect the sort of stuff that happened on January 6th. She said that she just assumed that the various security organs and Donald Trump would have prevented this or stopped it from happening should it have occurred. She's saying she could have done more to demand accountability and not take them at face value. Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone was responsible for the events of January 6th, and he was the one at the peak of authority. No one in the government had more authority than Donald Trump to stop or prevent the January 6th insurrection. The reason that we're showing this is no matter what they say, there is nothing that can ever be done to absolve Donald Trump. Donald Trump will always be morally inferior to everyone who participated in January 6th, anyone who was present on January 6th. He and he alone bears the ultimate responsibility, and any attempt to distract from that is a lie. Let me know what you think in the comments.